Fire Sacrifice, story by Munshi Premchand. The company of saints can transform even the wicked into good people, but Payag was unfortunate as the opposite effect occurred on him. He developed a habit of smoking ganja, charas, and bhang, leading a once industrious young man to become a worshipper of laziness. Where is the joy in life's struggles now? Under a large banyan tree, a holy fire burns, a dreadlocked saint sits in its glow, surrounded by devotees, all taking puffs of charas at every moment. Occasionally, hymns break the silence. Where is this heavenly bliss in labor and toil? It was Payag's job to refill the chillum. While the devotees hoped for spiritual rewards in the afterlife, Payag reaped immediate benefits, with the first puff always reserved for him. Listening to the saint's words of wisdom, he would be overwhelmed with joy, lost in a trance of self-forgetfulness, as if transported to another world filled with fragrance, music, and light. Thus, when his wife, Rukmin, would come looking for him at 10 or 11 at night, Payag would feel immense displeasure. The world seemed like a jungle of thorns, especially when he'd return home only to find the hearth still cold, forcing him to scramble for some basic sustenance. He was a village watchman by caste, and his profession was inherited. He earned 2 rupees and some additional coins, receiving a free uniform and turban. His duties were light. Once a week, he had to go to the police station, sweep the officers' doors, clean the stables, and chop wood. Payag did these tasks begrudgingly, swallowing his pride because defiance came with costly physical and financial repercussions. If there was any job in being a watchman, it was this, and 2 rupees for 4 days of work each month wasn't a bad deal. Besides, while he didn't hold sway over the powerful, he did have some authority over the lower classes. His salary was his pension, but ever since he fell into the company of the saints, that salary was drained for his pocket money. Thus, the problem of sustenance began to weigh on him more and more each day. Before these gatherings, the couple worked as labourers in the village. Rukmin would gather wood and sell it in the market, while Payag took on whatever job came his way, whether it was sawing, ploughing, or herding. He was cheerful, hardworking, humorous, and carefree, traits that ensure no one ever starves. He was so humble that he never said no to any task. If anyone called, he would respond with a hearty, "Yes, brother," and rush to help. His good reputation earned him respect in the village, and for 2 or 3 years, he and Rukmin managed to get by without much difficulty, even after his laziness set in. They might not have enjoyed 2 meals a day like the rich, but there was no doubt about getting 1 meal of lentils and bread. However, now the problem was becoming more severe by the day. Adding to his troubles, Rukmin no longer displayed the same devotion to him. She had grown more outspoken and argumentative. Thus, Payag began to long for a miracle, something that would free him from the burden of making a living, allowing him to immerse himself in spiritual devotion and the service of saints. One day, when Rukmin returned from selling wood in the market, Payag asked, "Give me some money so I can take a puff." Rukmin turned her face away and said, "If you love puffing so much, why don't you work? Aren't there any saints around these days for you to fill their chillums?" Payag scowled and replied, "If you care about me, give me the money. If you keep nagging, I'll leave one day, and then you'll regret it." Rukmin showed him her thumb mockingly and said, "I don't care. Whether you are here or not, it's not like you feed me gold. I struggle now, and I'll struggle even then. So, this is your final decision." "Yes, I told you, I don't have any money. There's money for making jewelry, but when I ask for a few coins, this is the response I get." Rukmin retorted sharply, "Why does it bother you if I make jewelry? You never even got me a brass ring, and now you can't even tolerate this." That day, Payag didn't come home. When night fell and it was 9 o'clock, Rukmin shut the door. She thought he must be hiding somewhere in the village, expecting her to come and coax him back. But she didn't care. The next day, when Payag didn't return, Rukmin began to worry. She searched the whole village, but he was nowhere to be found. That day, she didn't cook. Even when she lay down at night, she couldn't sleep for a long time. She feared that Payag might have actually renounced the world. She decided that the next morning, she would search every nook and cranny and report him to the police if necessary. Just at dawn, Rukmin prepared to leave for the police station when she saw Payag returning. But he wasn't alone. Behind him was a woman. Seeing her printed sari, tied shawl, long veil, and shy walk, Rukmin's heart sunk. She stood there for a moment, stunned, and then quietly took the new woman inside, as if a person resigned to fate, drinking poison as a last resort. Once the neighbors had dispersed, Rukmin asked Payag, "Where did you bring her from?" Payag laughed and said, "She was running away from home. I found her on the way. She'll do the household chores, she'll stay here. Looks like you're tired of me now." Payag cast a sidelong glance at her and said, "Oh, silly. I brought her to serve you. No one values the old when the new comes around." Nonsense. Whoever the heart connects with is new, and whoever it doesn't is old. Now, give me some money if you have any. I haven't had a puff in 3 days, my legs are weak. And feed this poor woman for a few days. After that, she'll take over the work." Rukmin handed him a full rupee without any further argument. Payag had many flaws, but he certainly knew how to wield authority. He had mastered the art of divide and rule. For a month, there was no disturbance. Rukmin forgot all her complaints. She would rise early, gather wood, chop fodder, or make dung cakes and take them to the market. Half of whatever she earned went to Payag, while the rest covered household expenses. She wouldn't let the new woman, Kasalya, now called Celia, do any work. She told the neighbors, "Sister, she may be a co-wife, but she's still a new bride. If she doesn't rest for a few months, what will she remember?" Rukmin's virtues were praised throughout the village, but the cunning Payag understood everything and was delighted with his success. One day, Celia said, "Sister, I'm getting bored sitting at home. Find me some work too." Rukmin responded affectionately, "Are you trying to ruin my reputation? You do the household work, I'll handle the outside chores." But the submissive role was becoming unbearable for Celia. She was tired of doing housework all day, without any acknowledgement. When Rukmin went to the market with the fodder, Celia left the house to explore the village. There were Brahmins, Thakurs, Kayasts, and merchants in the village. Celia put on such an act of modesty that all the village women were charmed by her. Some gave her rice, others lentils, and so on. Who wouldn't want to welcome a new bride? On her very first round, Celia realized there was an opening for a miller in the village, and she decided to fill it. When she returned home, her head was laden with a basket full of wheat. Hearing the grinding sound late at night, Payag said to Rukmin, "Celia's already started grinding." Rukmin had brought flour from the market, and there wasn't much difference between the price of grain and flour. She was puzzled as to why Celia was grinding so early. When she came to the shed, she saw Celia sitting in the dark, grinding. Rukmin grabbed Celia's hand and lifted the basket, saying, "Who told you to grind? Whose grain is this?" Celia confidently replied, "Why don't you go back to sleep? What harm does it do to you if I grind? Can't you even tolerate the sound of the grinder? I never said anything to you. Whether you say something or not, don't I have some responsibility too? You don't know the people here yet. Everyone likes their flour ground, but when it comes to paying, they cry about it. Whose wheat is this? I'll throw it back at them first thing in the morning." Celia snatched the basket back from Rukmin and said, "Why wouldn't they pay? Am I working for free? You won't listen, will you? I won't be your maid forever." Hearing this argument, Payag intervened and said to Rukmin, "She's working, so why don't you let her? How long can she remain a new bride? 2 months have passed. What do you know? My reputation will be ruined." Celia sat down and started grinding again, saying, "You can't even let me sleep peacefully." Later, Payag said to Celia, "You didn't do the right thing." Celia retorted, "I know who you are taking the side of. I just told you to stay quiet, that's all. So, you are telling me not to open my mouth. Yes, this is a woman's job. Are you a woman or a man? Payag had no answer to this. Celia was becoming more assertive by the day. The tension between Rukmin and Celia continued to build. Celia's boldness and defiance grew with each passing day. Her refusal to abide by Rukmin's rules and her increasing assertiveness gradually destabilized the fragile peace in the household. Though Rukmin had initially welcomed Celia with open arms, she now found herself grappling with an adversary who was far more cunning and ambitious than she had anticipated. One day, when Payag was at the saints' gathering, Celia seized the opportunity to confront Rukmin. She accused her of being jealous and not allowing her to work or earn her own money. Celia's sharp words deeply hurt Rukmin, but being more patient and submissive by nature, she didn't retaliate. Instead, she silently bore the emotional pain, slowly realizing that her position in the house was weakening. Celia's audacity didn't stop at verbal insults. She began spreading rumors about Rukmin in the village, painting herself as the oppressed new wife while making Rukmin out to be a controlling and envious woman. This further damaged Rukmin's reputation, isolating her in the community. Payag, who was mostly indifferent, failed to recognize the growing discord. He was consumed by his laziness and addiction, caring more about his daily puff than the crumbling household dynamics. He enjoyed the power of having two women vying for control under his roof but didn't grasp the consequences of this ongoing battle. Eventually, Celia's influence extended beyond the household. She befriended several women in the village, making deals behind Rukmin's back. The little money Rukmin earned through her hard work was gradually taken over by Celia, who cleverly managed the household funds, leaving Rukmin with even less authority. One evening, Payag returned home after spending the entire day with the saints. As usual, he was intoxicated and oblivious to the tension at home. Rukmin, already distressed by Celia's behavior and the loss of her own standing, finally broke down. She confronted Payag about his laziness and their dire financial situation. With tears in her eyes, she begged him to take control of his life and stop letting Celia manipulate him. But Payag, drunk and insensitive, dismissed her concerns. He berated her for nagging and accused her of causing all the problems in the household. This was the last straw for Rukmin. For the first time in years, she stood up for herself. She declared that she had had enough and threatened to leave the house if things didn't change. Payag, shocked by her outburst, didn't take her threat seriously. He believed that Rukmin, being the docile and obedient wife, would never actually leave. However, Rukmin's resolve had hardened. The next morning, she packed her belongings and left the house without looking back. Celia watched with a smug sense of victory, thinking she had finally rid herself of her rival. But as days turned into weeks, Payag's household began to crumble. Celia, who had once seemed capable and resourceful, was unable to manage the home without Rukmin's hard work and dedication. Payag's addiction worsened, and with no steady income, their financial situation became dire. Celia's charm faded quickly, and the villagers began to see through her manipulative ways. In the end, the once stable household that Rukmin had maintained fell into ruin. Payag, consumed by his vices and surrounded by chaos, realized too late that he had driven away the one person who had truly cared for him. Rukmin, though heartbroken, found peace and independence away from the toxic environment. The story concludes with a powerful message about the consequences of neglecting responsibility, allowing laziness and addiction to take control, and the importance of recognizing the true value of the people in one's life before it's too late.